Hello everyone and welcome to today's lunchtime lecture. Today's topic is one that every drone operator asks at some point, where can I fly? We will be diving into the rules and the responsibilities and the tools that help us answer that question. My name is Sala Juritita and I am the UAS intern with the Irish Aviation's Unmanned Aircraft Systems Division. And today we are going to be discussing the regulations which underpin operations. That's sort of divided out into the responsibilities of the operator and then the responsibilities of the remote pilot. And then we will talk about operational authorization, which is an advance permission that you might need to operate in certain airspaces, particularly the ones that you will find in red on our geographical zones map. And then we will discuss geozone awareness and being aware of the responsibilities in those geozones, and then just some final thoughts on the topic. So we get a lot of questions about where can I fly, and the ground truth map for that is located here. You'll see that is our geographical zones map, which is available on the IAA website. That map was derived, as all of our UAS operations are, from Regulation EU 2019-947, which describes the rules and the procedures for operation of unmanned aircraft. That map is based on Article 15 of that regulation, and you will find that on our website here with the URL listed at the bottom there. It is a reference material for pilots. We are currently working on an updated version of a GeoJSON file to be uploaded to our website, which will allow you to upload that map overlay onto majority of UAS controllers, so that the map would then be displayed as you are flying. That is something our partners in the Airspace and U-Space division are working on right now. So we'll first talking about the responsibilities of the UAS operator. You'll find those in the aforementioned Regulation 2019-947 in the UAS.open 050 section. That is reflected in you having a UAS operator registration. This one here is David's. This is a requirement for any operation in EASA member states, which does include Ireland. And once you get the operator registration, you will learn 2019-947 describes a number of responsibilities, but the relevant ones for this conversation is contained in paragraph 4 of that open 050. The UAS operator is responsible for ensuring that all remote pilots and any personnel supporting the operation are familiar with the operating instructions for flights in the open category. Additionally, the operator must operate the geozone awareness system with the relevant information when required, based on the intended location of the operation. The file we were referring to earlier is directly related to the requirement as outlined in the regulation. So then paragraph 5, as I mentioned there, is highlighted by the GeoJSON file here. So by you having that available and utilizing it when you can fulfills that obligation. And we have an example here. This is a DJI controller. So how do you actually upload that? If you were using an RC1 or an RC2, you would tap on the About button, scroll down a little bit, and then you will see the Import Files dialog there. You click on that, and then you find wherever you have the file located, whether that's you've uploaded to the controller or it's sitting on your hard drive and now you're connected with the USB-C cable. So you'll upload that, and then that will be that obligation completed. If you try to upload it and you are having technical problems, please let us know. We want to keep track of these. We've had some reports and we just want to make sure that we are aware of the issues. And now we get down to the responsibilities of the remote pilot, the person who is actually flying the UAS. Your level of training is reflected with a remote pilot certificate of theoretical knowledge, as shown here. Again, this one is David's. Your endorsements on the right show your qualifications for which level of subcategory you can fly, whether that is in the open or in the specific category. So, and then once again, we go back to that same regulation of 2019-947 and we look to the UAS.open 060. You as a pilot have to make sure that you have obtained the updated information about geographical zones. So have you gone onto our website and looked for that information, or has your UAS operator uploaded that? And then during the flight, you have to comply with operational limitations in those geographical zones, which are defined according to Article 15. So that map sets forth the operational limits, whether that is you can't fly above 30 meters or you can't fly here unless you're in the specific category. This is where that obligation comes into play. Also, as a quick note, irrespective of where you are flying, you cannot fly close to or inside areas where an emergency response effort is going on. So the likes of fire services, An Garda Síochána, civil defence, the coast guards, if there is any ongoing emergency response effort, you are not allowed to fly near those people without their express position. So, or permission, sorry. So that is another obligation that you need to be aware of. And then to what are sort of the basic obligations for flying in the open category. They are the standards that we should all be used to by now. The likes of no higher than 120 meters in altitude, must remain visual line of sight at all times, no overflying assemblies of people. That is sort of the basics. There's a lot more detail about what the 120 meters in altitude means, and that is described here in Part A, where you can see that you have the likes of rolling terrain, and you must be within 120 meters in altitude of whatever the highest point is of where you are located. So you see that person on the mountain there, you see that the 120 meters is from their position, and that is how you want to be thinking about it. The 120-meter limit is intended to keep you clear of conventional manned aircraft, which often operate just above that altitude. The basic rules of traffic management help keep those separated. And then for an obstacle, you can go 15 meters higher than the top of that obstacle if you are within 50 meters laterally of said obstacle. But you have to have the permission of the obstacle owner. So, as an example, a lot of people will fly in Dublin City, they'll fly around the Spire or they'll fly around Poolbeg and think, oh, well, I'm 15 metres within the 50, but did ESB say that you could fly around Poolbeg stacks? Do they request that you do that? And then, if not, you are going to be in violation. So, the conditions which I talked about that are depicted here with the geographical zones map. I have zoomed in. You see that the map on the left there is Dublin, and then I've zoomed in on the right hand side. You'll see that that is an amber zone. If you click on it, it'll open this dialog box. Please bear in mind that some of those dialog boxes have multiple pages. In the bottom right, you might see one of two, so make sure you read both. That's been a thing that we've heard recently, and within them will be a description of the conditions. And in there it says 30-meter altitude limit. If you want to fly higher than that, you will have to do two things. One, you will have to fly in the specific category. If you only have your open A1, A3, or if you only have any open certifications, like you're flying a mini that weighs less than 250 grams, you cannot fly in the specific category. So that would be step one. And then step two, you have to get permission from the zone authority. So for this case here, you have to submit an operational authorization request to AirNav Ireland, and those directions are described there and how to do that, and the condition box in the condition box that opens up. And then you'll note here that we have Arbor Hill Prison. It's over slightly to the west of the city centre. It is a red zone, but you can fly there with the permission from the Irish Prison Service. And you can do that in the open category. So that is a condition that is important to understand when you read these notes and these messages from the zone authorities. You have to be really clear. Can I fly there in the open, or do I have to be in the specific category? And as mentioned before, here you can see it is the second layer of a dialog box, which is indicated at the bottom by stating page 2 of 2. So moving on, what is an operational authorization and what does it look like? So we have an airfield here, it is Cork Airport. If you want to fly in that red zone, you'll note here that it says access only for specific category operations. So if you're flying in the open, you cannot fly there. You are welcome to contact AirNav. They will ask you if you have an operational authorization, and when you say no, they will deny you access to that airspace. When you hold some form of an OA, whether that is making a declaration under an STS, getting a PDRA, getting a SORA, or getting a light UAS user certificate, there is a process. It includes some additional training and includes some additional safety measures. It's an entire sort of safety program, and it will also include some technical requirements for your UAS. Again, there are four. They are defined within the regulation. You'll find guidance on that on the EASA website as well. And they sort of rise in complexity from STS to PDRA to SORA and then to LUC. So the more advanced you get in your operation, the more advanced a permission you may require. If you're doing BV loss, if you're going well beyond visual line of sight, or you're using a drone to deliver something, that is going to be a very advanced level of operational authorization. That wouldn't be a declaration you would make under an STS, but if you were doing, site surveying, or you find yourself often in proximity to airports, and you wanted to be able to do that, the STS might be a path that you would find interesting and useful as a UAS operator. Once you have that, then you can operate. When you see an operational authorization is required, a lot of people will still contact AirNav or the relevant zone authority and say, well, I have my UAS operator registration. That is not an OA. After you complete a UF 101, if they give you approval to fly, that is not an operational authorization. Your remote pilot cert or an STS endorsement on your remote pilot cert, none of them are operational authorizations. An OA is one of four things. You have to have an STS, a PDRA, a SORA, or an LUC, nothing else. If someone asks you for an OA, that is what you have to provide. So moving on, a lot of people still rely on geo. A number of years ago, the leading manufacturers of UAS in the world had a system called geofencing, where the drone would not fly into a place it was not allowed to fly. That system is no longer in use, it does not exist. There is no regulatory reason for the drone manufacturer to take that responsibility. And they realised that and they sort of said, we're not going to do this anymore. So now it is entirely on the pilot. The story that we hear a great deal is, well, the drone didn't stop me from flying, so I thought it was okay to fly. That is no longer applicable. You cannot rely on the drone because the regulation says it is your responsibility. So be mindful of that as a UAS operator. Again, those are defined in 050 and 060 of the regulation that we've been discussing. Obtain the information as the operator. So you think of the operator for the business side of things. And then once you've obtained the information, the remote pilot has to adhere to that information when they are out flying. There are additional responsibilities that you as a pilot or as a UAS operator have to be aware of. There are things like NOTAMs and environmental restrictions, there are privacy requirements, and there may be land use restrictions which you can find the additional information on the links below. And we do encourage people to make sure that they are familiar with those as you are obliged to adhere to them. So now let's talk about wildlife. The National Parks and Wildlife Service is responsible for setting restrictions on operations to protect both animals and land. So there's a map here. The NPWS has a wonderful map that you kind of click through a little bit to get the information you're trying to find. For example, if you plan to fly in an area that is marked pink, you need to check whether it has specific drone restrictions. Please note that this is not a dedicated drone restriction map. It shows general usage and behaviour restrictions, some of which may include limits on drone operations, but it is obligatory for you to familiarise yourself with those and where you're going to be flying, and to make sure you're not, endangering nesting birds or migratory paths or anything along those lines. And as a UAS operator, you have an obligation to respect designated areas. The NPWS map is interactive and it allows you to download a PDF with the details about the area where you plan to fly. And it is an important aspect to make sure that the land we share is usable for everybody for years to come and that we're not endangering any wildlife as UAS operators. So, in summary, understanding where you can fly your drone safely and legally involves you knowing your responsibilities as both a UAS operator and a remote pilot. If you have any further questions or need more information, please visit our website at www.iaa.ie/drones or feel free to email us at drones@iaa.ie. Thank you for joining me today.